All right. Hello and welcome to Free Together, Free Apart, Hacking Family Success. I'm ErikThompson, Executive Director of the Vermont Center for Family Studies, and I am very pleased to be with you here today to talk about one of my favorite topics and see what your thoughts and questions are about it. Looking out at some old friends, some new friends, some people in our training program, and my brother from another mother, Mark Roberts, there in Fairfield, Iowa. Hello, Mark. Can you unmute so we can hear you?
Yes, how's that?
Mr. Roberts.
Nice to be here. Now, I have to tell everyone, 3 months ago, there was a big windstorm here in Iowa where I live, and a tree fell on my roof of my house and did some little damage. And 30 minutes ago, the roofers showed up finally after 3 months to start working on it. So if you hear some pounding, please forgive me. It's just I can't get them to stop after waiting 3 months.
Impeccable timing. Impeccable.
Yeah, incredible.
So I'm gonna do a little poll in a minute here, Mark, to see what the folks on this call are interested in. And as you know, the purpose of this meeting is to talk a little bit more about this idea of inner silence and healthy separateness and the relationship between the two, the potential relationship. And also to give people a chance to maybe understand a little more about this new offering that I'm calling Moonlight Swim. So inner silence. They say silence is golden. And they say that on a silent night, all is calm and all is bright. So I want you to picture it's a silent night. It's about 80 degrees. You're walking across the sand towards blue water. The water's warm. Your feet go in. Feels good. You go in a little further and then you immerse yourself in a moonlight swim on a silent night. That's the vision for this conference. It's an experience. The conference is, in my mind, different than any meeting I've done in the Vermont Center for Family Studies before, in that it's not primarily focused on theory or intellectual clarity, things I greatly value. But this meeting is going to be specifically focused on helping people to have an experience of an aspect of self that can be accessed through the transcendent and through transcendental meditation. So experiential, big word for this conference, big descriptor. What do you think about that, Mark Roberts?
Well,
what a knuckleheaded idea. What were you thinking, Mark, when you suggested it?
What would I know about this? I've actually been meditating 50 years. I learned when I was in college at 20 years of age. And so I've had a little opportunity to put my toe into the water and get wet. So I'll be happy to share some thoughts about immersing into the ocean on the moonlight, but it's a sunny day here, but it works just as well.
You've been on a few moonlight swims, Roberts?
I have.
I would say you're pretty much soaked. You're dripping.
I'm dripping wet. And
Mark Roberts, I was thinking about this. How do you introduce Mark Roberts? He's got an MBA. What university, Roberts?
Maharishi University.
But really, they don't give PhDs for meditation experience. But if they did, I think Mark would have more than one.
You're very kind. That hasn't been determined to be true yet by any other source with any academic credentials. But I'll accept what do they call it, emeritus or honorary?
Okay, honorary.
PhD. I put in my time.
We have no authority in the Vermont Center for Family Studies to offer honorary degrees, but we'll give you one anyways.
Okay, I'll put it on my wall.
All right,
proudly.
we're going to do this poll now. So find out a little bit about what you folks have on your mind and what's interesting to you. You just take a minute and then we'll share the results.
Erik, I'm not sure my survey's submitting.
Are you seeing the poll?
I am. I filled it out, but submit, it's still there.
Sometimes
scroll down.
down at the bottom of, there's a little delay sometimes with this app.
Okay.
Just to clarify, though, there are more than 2 questions, so you do have to scroll down to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, really scroll. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, there's actually 5 questions. There's the roof.
I'm not able to submit either. I'm at the bottom.
So far, 2 people thought it was a cooking show.
Mine isn't working.
Well, we got 21 out of 25 voted, so I'm going to go ahead and it's okay. We're going to just get a feel. So Mark, check this out. Here's the breakdown. Can you see the results now? Can you all see the results?
Yes, I can see the results.
And then you can scroll to see what the other people who you have joined on this meeting. So we got a real mix of beginner, moderate, experienced meditators. Some who meditate regularly. Got a skeptic that's not that interested in meditation. Good. It's good to have skeptics in the house. Hopefully the skeptic will talk. Quite a bit of mindfulness for people who know TM. And I noticed kind of maybe more interested in the general topic, although maybe there's some overlap there between those interested in the course and in TM. So maybe I'll start off by talking about the general topic a little then, and we can get into some more about the course. So some of you attended and some you know about this conference that we've done 3 years in a row that I titled this year Inner Silence and Healthy Separateness. I've been interested in Bowen theory, teaching Bowen theory for 25 years. Inner separateness, healthy separateness is a different phrase for differentiation of self, which one of my clients said has too many syllables. So healthy separateness, such a fascinating journey that we go on together in our Bowen theory communities, exploring what is healthy separateness, what is the lived experience of healthy separateness, differentiation of self, such a useful concept to so many people in solving substantial relationship puzzles between high stakes partners like husbands, wives, daughters, bosses, best friends who annoy you. And so I just have found that concept so tremendously useful to me, and my clients find it so useful, it's just stuck with me and I'm still studying it. Meanwhile, I have a 40-year journey with Transcendental Meditation. And increasingly in the last 5 years, I'm really fascinated with the overlap between these two things. Inner silence being the transcendent, and healthy separateness, differentiation of self. I'm convinced there's a substantial overlap. Many people say when you're coaching someone in Bowen theory that one of the first things you want to do is help them lower the anxiety level. Last month's call, we talked about doing this with couples and how the therapist's presence, if their presence is, I can handle this couple, that's just a calming thing for the couple. I'm in the presence of somebody who can handle the challenge we're dealing with. Not necessarily trying to solve it, but I can be here with you and not get unstrung by it. So many people, are interested in this link between meditation and anxiety. There's actually this mountain of science pouring out, some super high quality, some moderate quality, about the power of meditation to influence anxiety states, including trait anxiety, which is like chronic anxiety, the underlying anxiety and fearfulness that is so much a part of many of us in the 21st century. So I think it's a pretty easy call to say that meditation can be really useful in helping people manage anxiety. But I'm actually going a step further. I think that there's something meditation, and I speak about transcendental meditation because it's the thing I know about inside and out. And so this course is going to be specifically for people who've learned transcendental meditation for that reason, and because, like I said, it's more experiential. So we're going to be meditating together. We're going to be talking about the practice. If somebody hadn't learned transcendental meditation, that just wouldn't be a good fit for this course. And as I was saying, I think that the experience of transcendence, or the experience of inner silence, in a minute, I'll talk about what that is for those of you who are not familiar, may actually impact healthy separateness and differentiation of self even more profoundly than just lowering anxiety. And this gets around to a deeper question about what is the self. So Bowen theory has a model of what the self is. It has this beautiful aspirational concept of basic self, this sort of fundamental dimension of self that doesn't change based on experiences. I'm going to share the screen here and share a slide with you about that basic self concept in Bowen theory. Let's click through here. And its relationship to approval. Basic self is not negotiable in a relationship system, in that it is not changed by coercion, pressure, or to gain approval. So this aspect of self, we all have what in Bowen theory they call functional self and basic self. This is the model in Bowen theory. Functional self can get pushed around by coercion, pressure, desire to have approval. But this basic self, something more fundamental to us, is that thing that doesn't change. It's stable. And growing that is the path to family leadership in Bowen theory. Here's a quote from the ancient Vedic tradition that TM comes out of. Whether his body's cut into 1,000 pieces or he's crowned an emperor, there's quite a range there of potential experiences. The liberated one is liberated even if he apparently weeps and laughs. Within himself, he's neither elated nor depressed. And that beautiful statue that these ancient artists have tried to fashion that sort of give one a feeling of being in the presence of someone who has that level of stability inside have been inspiring to me my whole life. So I see a profound relationship between these two quotes, a fascinating coherence between them. Mark, can you get in on this for a sec? What do you think about what I just said?
I agree. I've been reading about Bowen theory for over a year now, and I see beautiful parallels between the deepest value of Bowen theory in terms of self-differentiation and also the deepest values of transcendence. The path of transcendence is not one that, for most people, gives you the immediate experience of the full value of the transcendence. It takes some time, some practice to get familiar with the inner transcendent level of the mind and of being. So both are a journey that people engage in. And there's both experience and knowledge involved. And this is where I think there's real value, both in terms of experience, but also in the knowledge that Bowen has developed an understanding of relationships and how they impact us as individuals and how we as individuals interact and make decisions in our relationship situations. The knowledge has tremendous value to know if we're in a triangle and we make a change in our viewpoint, in our behavior, there's going to be pushback from someone else in that triangle, very likely. And we have to be stable in understanding that situation. Similar, when we have transcendence growing in our life, we have to understand how that will manifest in terms of changing our perspective, how it might influence our relationships and so forth, as we gain that inner value of transcendence in life. So I think what this course will bring out is how these two approaches to self can mesh very nicely and become integrated over time. It's a journey that we are embarking on.
And the main focus of this particular course will be experiencing the transcendent. So we've structured a course designed around that experience. Now I want to say a little bit more. Let's just get some definitions, because transcendence, 3 syllables, there's a lot of syllables. By the way, here's what we're planning to do today. Talk for about another 5 minutes, take some questions, interact a little, have a breakout session where you can think out loud together, and then get back for more discussion. What is transcendence? The TM technique is an effortless procedure for allowing the excitations of the mind, thoughts, gradually to settle down until the least excited state of mind is reached. Least excited state being a metaphor with physics for least excited state of material objects, which change the way they function when they go into a least excited state. Least excited state, it's a low anxiety state, transcendence. It's a state of inner wakefulness with no object of thought or perception, just pure consciousness meaning consciousness without any object of perception in the experience, aware of its own nature. At the same time, the body settles into a state of deep rest, enabling the body to dissolve cumulative stress and fatigue and to revitalize and rebalance itself, kind of like a super sleep. Great night's sleep. So here's the ocean, an ancient metaphor for the transcendent, going beneath the surface to the stillness down below. How about TM? What's TM? Transcendental meditation technique differs from most other procedures in that it involves no concentration or control. I've become more aware in the last 5 years how the word meditation gets used to describe so many different things. It's almost like we should use different words to describe different things. TM is very, very different from mindfulness, probably as different from mindfulness as it is from Bowen theory. I've done them both. They're both very valuable. This one's about transcendental meditation. So it's easy. Effortlessness is a key word. So easy, even a 10-year-old can do it. It's practiced for 20 minutes twice a day while sitting comfortably with eyes closed. It's neither a philosophy nor a belief system. You don't even have to believe it'll work. I have the little picture of the iPhone there to give you the sense of something that's very easy to use, very simple, but also very sophisticated. And the little picture of the person who's, there's a lot of research on TM that somebody like her would be a subject in studies. Here's another little picture. The glass, the water, when it's in an agitated state, it's bubbly or tumultuous, or maybe in the picture there's a stage of the degrees to which the sediment in the water has settled down. And when it settles, its clarity can reflect more. In fact, it could reflect the entire sun. That's a metaphor for transcendence. And some resources, if you're interested in learning more about it, this is a great book that was published a few years ago, very readable, very descriptive of what transcendental meditation is. Also, Free Intro to TM by Bob Roth on YouTube, easy to find. How you learn it, if you go to tm.org, you can connect with a certified TM teacher. Emphasize that for this course, people have to learn a certified TM. The reason I think this is so important is because TM is very standardized, and all the research, the 500 studies, peer-reviewed studies that have been done on it, are all done on the same thing, on this standardized version of teaching it. You can't learn it from a book. And we're going to want to be using the standardized version. Here's just a little taste of the research. Just to show it real quickly there, big impact on atherosclerosis. American Heart Association gives this, rated the standard of research on all these different methods of complementary treatment for heart disease. They looked at all the complementary treatments, they rated the quality of the research, and TM got a very, very high standard judged by the American Heart Association. So that's a little bit about what we're talking about. Mark, do you think we should take some questions now?
Yes, let's do that.
Or have you got something to say, Roberts? You've always got something to say. I love interviewing Mark Roberts. Folks, let's hear some questions. What are you thinking about? If you just raise your hand, or you could just unmute yourself and just start talking. Usually we don't have a crowd of people wanting to talk. So for about 10 minutes, I'll just take some questions and Mark and I can respond. Skeptics welcome.
This is Carl, Erik.
Hey, Carl.
Could you just, I don't know if you're going to talk toward the end about just a little more of the specifics of the structure and kind of like what the time would look like month by month.
Thank you, Carl.
In the Moonlight.
I'm going to go right to that slide now. So you can see here, if you go down the left, there's two core components, 2-hour group sessions, 6 of them, and then a full day virtual meditation retreat. So that's that. I'll describe both these things. So what we're going to do is we're going to have 3 meetings that lead up to the retreat that prepare participants for the retreat in a structured way, and then 3 meetings after the retreat to integrate the experience that's growing through the process. You can see when these meetings are going to be happening: Monday mornings or Monday afternoons, and the dates there, first Mondays, and then the retreat in April. If everybody got together in the meeting and half the people said that's not a good day for the retreat, we could pivot on the day for it. But it's going to be a very quiet, simple day. You can see some of the expected outcomes and stuff on that, this is on our website too. Prerequisite, you will have to have learned TM before. And so in the group sessions, you can see here, we'll be meditating together in the group sessions. We'll having discussions of experiences of inner silence, shared readings, and knowledge. Mark was talking about how knowledge and experience integrate to help people understand what this inner silence is. And then in the virtual retreat, the basic feeling of that, it'll be a non-intellectual experience, gentle and rejuvenating, really letting go of the outer world, diving inward together at a more full way than most people do during the day. Big break from news and cell phones. And then we'll also be meeting together along with the meditation during the virtual retreat to discuss experiences, hear some more knowledge, have meals together, and take walks. Carl, do you have any questions about it other than that summary?
No, that's helpful. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Erik,
Yes.
will there be anything in the middle of each month, will there be any sort of 2-week experience or anything like that?
Haven't thought about it. Reading. So we're going to read
Okay.
today. So there'll be reading book. We're going to read a book together.
Okay. I was gonna be missing you from month to month.
Was this a leading question, Suzanne
Yeah,
Brew?
of course, of course.
You're wanting something?
I did. I just thought a month was a lot to, not be in touch. Or I don't know if there's a way of being in touch during that time.
Certainly open to considering that.
Thank you.
Anybody else curious about this or questions, or what do you think about this idea of meditation and Bowen theory? Have you been thinking about that or wondering about that at all?
I have a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
I am a member of a Buddhist Sangha and have been meditating since college, the 70s, and also a Bowen learner, practitioner for 30 years. And I've always been fascinated with the concept, the overlaps of the idea of self. And I'm especially interested in ideas that support the growth of basic self, incrementally as it can be, modestly as it can be, and where meditation might be a support. But I'm not a TM person, so I'll be curious to hear if there's any conversation about that. Meditation as a support to bumping up, notching a modest amount of basic self.
Yeah. So Jim, you and I share that fascination, and I look forward to an opportunity to hear more about your thinking about it. Actually, kind of curious if you want to take a shot at it right now, just for a minute or two. What have you discovered? What are you learning? I want to build a community of practice of people fascinated by this concept and this question. We're doing that. We're building that here. And I'll just say, it's a little bit tough to exclude non-TM meditators, but I think you probably understand, given the specifics of practices are so different, we're going to take a dive into this one. So,
I guess my very brief observation of the relationship, though I'd like to deepen it, is that in meditation, there's an opportunity for emotions to fall into place and be thought about, so that you can activate your thinking and reduce your reactivity. I guess that's just my simple observation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. What else? So one of the things that's interesting to me about the difference between transcendence and mindfulness, and as I said, I really value both of them. I loved the two scientists we had at our Inner Silence and Healthy Separateness conference in October, one who was a TM researcher and one was a Vipassana researcher. And the TM researcher said TM is not, it's not a thinking process. He said, Mark, I think he said it's not a cognitive process, which surprised me. I was like, really? It's not a cognitive process at all? Aren't you using the mind with meditating? What do you think about that? Does that make sense to you, what Fred Travis said?
Yeah, you're talking about TM now, right?
Right.
The time of transcendence, you could say, is non-cognitive, in that there's no thinking involved. In TM, we're not, during the time of meditation, concerned about feelings, emotions, things that happen during the day, trying to understand them. We're simply going beyond them to the transcendence. We make a simple analogy of comparing the mind to an ocean. We have all of those emotions on the surface of the mind, that activity that we experience within ourselves. Thoughts come up in relation to those emotions, maybe angry thoughts or peaceful thoughts. A whole range is there. And what we do, though, in meditation is we don't get into mental meditation. We learn a mantra, which is
Hey,
it
Mark,
could be a sound.
excuse me. You froze up for a little bit.
I did.
So I'm going to start you. We lost probably about 30, maybe 20 seconds. So where you had stopped, you said you were talking about the mind and the thoughts and how it could be angry thoughts or peaceful thoughts.
Okay. But in transcendental meditation, we're not concerned with thoughts per se. We learn a mantra which has no meaning. So during meditation, we're not transcendental meditation. We're not concerned with getting involved with the meaning of emotions that may come up during the day. We're not concerned with the emotions that come up during the meditation. We're simply innocently thinking our mantra, and we allow the mind to settle down to experience the transcendent. And the benefits come after the meditation, in that we become more and more familiar over time with that silence, that calm presence of mind, presence of being, presence of self, that is there when we transcend, and then we bring it out into activity. So we meditate, and then we forget about meditation when we get into activity. We just plunge into meditation, then we plunge into activity. And transcendental meditation, we're not involved in any kind of form or way with the meditation in activity. We gain the results just by having that dip into the ocean, that moonlight swim, and then we're refreshed. You get into the ocean, into the water on a hot day, you naturally feel fresher, relaxed, and we carry that freshness, that relaxed state into our activity. And that alone is the basis with the transcendental meditation technique to help us with all of these emotions and thoughts that we've been dealing with.
And what's interesting to me regarding differentiation of self is that many people have described this. I tried to describe it in my talk at the October conference, that sense of a silent inner self comes to be more awake in awareness during activity, interacting with family members. And it's described in the ancient traditions as a separateness, a kind of healthy, connected separateness to all that goes on during the day after meditation. So, and it's described actually as a sense of self that is kind of impervious in a healthy way to the storm and drama on the surface of the ocean of life. And that's where I see a tremendous relationship with differentiation. So let me just see if I can get one more question. Really would welcome a beginner question or somebody we haven't heard from. Anything you're thinking about, or it doesn't even have to be a question, just a comment. Before I give you the opportunity to share some thoughts in a much smaller forum in a breakout room in a minute.
I've thought about this for some time, and I began meditation in college, and I'm grateful to it for surviving the 60s. And when Dr. Bunting arrived in Burlington in 1986, my late wife and I got tremendous value from Bowen theory. I've looked at, I think of meditation in some ways as an umbrella term, and there are so many different forms. I think of them as pretty much something for everybody. many different forms depending on the individual. And it struck me with studying Dr. Bowen's thinking and activity, specifically around his concept of neutrality, and that very calm, connected, but somehow detached interest, curiosity, and observation and interaction with whoever he's dealing with, family, clients. Struck me deeply that there are many parallels with various forms of meditation as I understand them and the couple that I'm familiar with. I started out with Zen practice, and then in a few years, my universal teacher tapped me on the shoulder, and more of a universal Advaitic Hindu orientation, valuing every school and religion. Based in my thinking and my understanding now is one source, all interconnected at the most fundamental level. I think that it parallels Einstein's unified field theory, and I actually, cutting to a chase, I see Bowen family systems theory as an operationalization of unified field theory. But meditation as a general term, without getting into all the variety, this is my feeling, is a portal to the core self. And you can drill as deeply down as you possibly can go. A genuine self, you could start with a Freudian self, has to be intact to do work. And it sees action in the world as sort of the ultimate. But the spiritual teachers from all the traditions assert that it can go much, much deeper than that with various names in terms of source from which all have emerged. And you look at Bowen's work, looking at from the cosmic to the subatomic and every species in between that we're aware of, insects, reptiles, birds, mammals, and us and all that, and all the consistency between them. That's why the slime mold expert comes to the annual conference, and there's parallels with theory. So it's, to me, profoundly through his, it's profoundly consistent with and part of, to me, the vastest whole. And it started as I was first learning and watching his tapes and local groups, that Bowen and team, through a highly disciplined intellectual process, have arrived at some of the tools and understandings that the, quote, spiritual seekers, unquote, have arrived at through their various forms of meditation, quieting the mind so that the clarity and the light can shine forth. So anyway, don't get me started. It's very interesting to me.
Dr. Mark Abrams, that was beautiful. And Dr. Mark Abrams, longtime student of Bowen theory and friend of the Vermont Center for Family Studies, and a great encourager of this direction for me personally. Very clear, Mark. And thanks for bringing up neutrality. So I would just say, before we move into the short breakout experience, you know, people who love Bowen theory get fascinated with this idea of being able to be neutral in a family storm. And I think many of us go on a long journey studying it, telling stories about it, hearing stories about it, seeking it, trying to find it. And I think probably many of us feel, I wish I had more of it. And why it's so elusive. Why is it so elusive? And we often say, oh, I'm a beginner at it for decades. And I'm in the same camp. I am on a mission. I'm fascinated and passionate about finding access to even more of it. And I've come to feel that TM for sure, and I'm sure all these other practices have the capacity to provide another pathway, not a alternative, but a complementary pathway to that journey towards experiencing more neutrality, which is extremely good for preserving your heart. So I'm going to give you a chance now to just talk for maybe 6 minutes in a breakout. People often find this quite enjoyable. The point of it isn't so much to meet people, but to give you a chance just to integrate with some of what we've been talking about, some of what you're thinking about. And here's some quick guidelines to how you might want to operate in this breakout. The question is, what has this discussion got you thinking about? Very simple. What has this discussion got you thinking about today? And it'll be timed, it'll end automatically after 6 minutes. And I suggest you don't need to introduce each other. Just if one person could take the lead and say, okay, well, I'll start. I'm going to tell you all. Talk about for a minute or two and tell them what you're thinking about. It'll be a group of 2 or 3 or 4. And just say what you think and listen to each other. Give you a chance to just share what you're thinking. And then we'll come back and hopefully out of your breakout experiences, some more questions or thoughts that you'd like to share will emerge. And we'll end on a little bit more question and answer after just 6 minutes. All right. So just quick, we have some cool things coming up here in this forum. Next week, success with multi-generational family Zoom calls. John Kamak inspired me to start trying this in my family, and they've been going really well. What does Bowen Theory have to contribute to success in multi-generational family Zoom calls? And then Dan Papro the week after that, A Life in Family Therapy. Looking forward to interviewing Dan, and then after the new year, Ernie Pomerleau. I also want to show you, we got a conference on polarization leadership coming up. Matthew Dickinson, very interesting scholar of polarization. And we're going to hear a great story from our faculty member, Kim Ziegelman, about overcoming and leading family polarization. So what are you thinking about? Anybody want to get in the conversation and ask a question or share a thought? What was interesting in your small group? Just have time for a couple of comments.
Erik, I was fascinated with what Mark Abrams had to say about Bowen Theory, something like an operationalized look at the unified field. And is Mark still here? I thought he'd be, that would be an interesting to hear more about that at some point.
Thank you, Carla. I want to have a series of conversations in this Free Together series on this topic. So like through 21, I think it'll be peppered through our schedule, just kind of going back and forth out of the topic, then back into it, maybe 1 out of every 4 or something like that. And maybe Dr. Abrams, I can impose upon you to come be our guest for one of these, and you and I can chat, and they can hear the crazy stuff you and I talk about when we sit at the coffee shop. What do you think about that idea? You're muted.
It would be a pleasure and an honor. Thank you, Carla. Thank you, Erik.
Other thoughts? What was interesting in your small group?
What wasn't?
I was really fascinated by the conversation right before we got disconnected. We were talking about this connection, but relationship between connection, health, and also differentiation. And then we got cut off, and I thought there's something potent there for me. And also to add in this experience of the transcendence into that. So this sort of triad, this sort of triangle of experience and knowledge. And I love the idea that I could come into this a deeper understanding of these things, these experiences through not thinking about it so much. So, and I guess the other thing I wanted to say, I was so attracted to this course. I've known ErikThompson a really long time, and we sort of started TM around the same time, but I haven't been practicing it so much. But that I really loved how you started out this course. I love the title of this course, starting out for a vision of this course. I really responded to that. So
it's very different from a lot of the work I've done previously in Bowen theory, Suzanne, which does like try to cultivate that incredible tool of the intellect and use it to explore this mysterious dichotomy of connection and separateness. And that's just been so useful. But yeah, like you said, this is a real evolution for me. I've never done a course like this before. Mark Roberts, on the other hand, has taught thousands of people transcendental meditation, including a bunch of them in Sri Lanka, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right, Mark Roberts?
That is correct.
He's a newbie with Bowen theory. So yeah, this will be a really different course. Thank you, Suzanne. Joanna Berger, can I call you out? What are you thinking about, Joe?
Sure. My experience isn't with TM, it's with more, mindfulness. But as I've been learning Bowen theory, it really just seems like an exercise in mindfulness, like as I've had experiences with my family, I'm sort of trying to like come out of my feeling system and like start coming back to the concepts of Bowen theory. And like as a therapist, sort of getting sucked into the problem and then remembering, my anchor as like the family system and the big picture. And so I've also, felt there's a really strong connection, but more with mindfulness practice. And I think that it would be really hard to learn Bowen theory. It's almost like a muscle that I've been practicing mindfulness for a while. So I have a little bit of that muscle built up. And I think it's been like really helping me learn and apply the theory.
I felt the same way, Joe, when I got exposed to Bowen theory. I had been doing transcendental meditation since Suzanne and I learned it together when we were 19. But I felt the same way. I felt that it was, I could sense early on that it was easier for me to grasp the idea of the wholeness of a system because of my background with meditation. I'm going to mention a few more things here as we wind down in our last minutes. Walter Smith coming in March, just talked to him today. We're going to talk about presence. We're going to talk about social impact, getting beyond the disease model. A conversation with the amazing Dr. Walter Smith coming in March. Our YouTube channel, where you can see recordings of all these meetings. And just want to shout out thank you to those of you who have contributed to this organization. A lot of volunteer energy goes into this organization. We can't pay for these meetings with the fees we're charging for them. So those of you move to donate and help us strengthen families, that's what we're all about. We really appreciate it. Yeah, it's just so inspiring when we get donations of any size, which is easy to do on our webpage. Many of you know we have a training program. This is one of our cohorts in that. Wonderful process to be involved in. This is an ancient quote translated from Sanskrit that I'd like to leave you with. So let me know if you have any questions. Please just feel free to reach out to me and email me if you have any questions. We could hop on the phone and talk about the course if that's interesting to you. And I hope to see a lot of you here next week. If you're into this family's multi-generational Zoom call process and you've got things to share, we're going to be kind of gathering best practices and wisdom from other people after Kamak and I launch it off with some thoughts about what we've learned and how Bowen theory can help people have success. I was told by one of my nephews that he's on two, one in my family and one in this other family that he's a part of, that I'm, not biologically connected. And he said, the other one's a disaster, Uncle Erik. I said, well, why? Tell me why. And he gave me a bunch of points. All right, folks, have a good afternoon. So good to be with you.
Many thanks.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks.
Love this meeting. Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
so
you,
much, Erik.
Erik.
Bye.
Okay, I got to jump onto another meeting. Don't you too, Nancy Weber. We got another one right now. See you, folks. Bye, Mark. Thank you for coming. Bye, Abrams.
Later on.